Says meeting is streaming live on here.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Debbie from Teacher Success Coach once again. I'm not too sure what happened because we seem to have just lost you guys. Welcome, Candice, again.
Hi.
Please introduce yourself.
Again, my name is Candice Leaños, and I am the founder, CEO of My Piece of Health Coaching Services, where I help women and families to achieve wellness every single day, not just when it comes to health, which is also very important, but we think of it mind, body, and soul. So education is definitely part of that. And in fact, I have come to realize that the education is sometimes one of the hardest parts of achieving health because a lot of times there's stress. There's a lot of things that we deal with when it comes to making sure our kids are good and taken care of. So that is who I am, and that's what I love to do. I've been homeschooling for the past 12 years. I have kids ranging from 21 all the way back down to 5 years old. So we've had a full house, but we have a lot of time, a lot of fun times, a lot of learning that we have taken place in our home of how to kind of work this system for us and let it be a tool to continue on to do great things.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Right. So you've said, roughly why have you started on this journey? You said you've been doing it for 12 years, right?
Yeah.
So which means that your first child have gone pathway to the traditional education.
Yes.
Okay. So why did you decide to pull him out? Him or her? Is it a he?
It's a he.
Okay.
It was actually I pulled two of them out at the same time. Um, the main reason why I chose to pull him out is because we found that there was a lot of challenges with him learning. He was lots of issues when it came to the teachers as far as he seemed not to be able to turn in his homework or maybe he would zone out. In fact, I found it very interesting that the teachers would just kind of give him his own work to do and he would be doing his own thing at his own pace at his own time. And so I figured why not just go ahead and homeschool him so I can maybe be a little bit more aware of what that looks like for him and not have him just off to the side doing his own thing. And so when we pulled him out, one of the final things that they give you when we are unenrolling our kids is the grades for the state scores that that took place that year. Mind you, he was failing the whole year. When I looked at his test scores, he actually surpassed everyone in the state of Florida, but his schoolwork did not reflect that, and he struggled to turn in his assignments, to find his assignments. They'll be balled up sometimes in his desk. We struggled to get him organized, definitely, but also to keep his attention long enough to be focused on what we have to do. Then my daughter, what we discovered afterwards was my daughter, she was kind of the opposite. She had great grades, she was doing fabulous. But when I got ready to do the placement testing for her for homeschool curriculums that we was choosing, she was not even coming close to the levels on which I thought that she should be at according to the grade level. And so we realized that there was some things that was happening in some ways that their learning wasn't processing the same ways, and we needed to I didn't give them the same curriculum that year. We gave them curriculum that was going to help them, and I just basically told them that this is not a grade anymore. We're not in grade levels. We're just working and we're learning, and we're going to get you to the place where you need to be. So those were the main reason why is trying to make sure that my kids were at the level that they need to be at when it came to their education for what I considered, what we think according to the standards that they set for us of where they should be. So it was just trying to get them to where they need to be.
Thank you. Something you said which was interesting, the fact that the teachers was they were giving your son work to do by himself. It's interesting because this is something I've had one of the teachers say about my son. He's not on our radar. So therefore, because he's not on the radar, they just leave him to just get on with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is where we actually, if we are not on aware, if we're not aware parents, that is where some of these children get lost in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't want that for my kids. You know, I really didn't. I saw my dad is actual a teacher as well. He was very much you know, he made me question, like, is this the route that I really want to go? And education is huge in my family. It's just, it's such a big deal. But the one thing I did not want him to do is get lost in the system. I would see that when he did not feel that people cared around him, there was times when he would pick up on bad habits of the other kids who would kind of get put in the same category, and almost like the kids that you just don't expect to do good. And I wanted him to know that we see him more than that. And I didn't want him to get lost in the system, because the system starts here in elementary school, but then that system can be in a, you know, it can go into our prison systems and other things that happen later on in life. So I wanted to catch it before we got to a place that it can really impact his life.
And how was it for him when you pull him out of the mainstream education? What was some of the impact you felt that he had on him?
Oh, I really felt that there was pressure taken off of him, that
Mm.
he was free to truly learn, and to, he was not only able to just learn for the sake of learning. I kid you not, he's probably one of the smartest kids I know. Well, he's 21 now. I think he would want to be considered a man. He's in the military now. But it gave him the freedom to explore other things too. So he discovered in this process that he had a love for piano. He's self-taught um, classic piano player. He learned it much later. He learned new languages. He had an opportunity to learn things that at those ages was not presented to him, because maybe they were presented later, like in high school or other things. But I noticed that he was able to grow more, and he's that kid that have all the facts, if you will, you know, but it was encouraged. So we gave him not just homeschool as in this is a traditional school but it's done at home, but we decided to make our home an environment of learning instead. So yeah, so I think that he impacted well, and I would even go so far to put my third child in there really quickly, that I noticed that because I was still in the this is how you school. Again, big component of school too. And I wanted my kids, I had a classroom set up for them. I had everything arranged like school. And my little one, when he got into that age, I promise you, he just was not going with the flow. And I believe if he was in school, they probably would have said that he had some maybe ADHD or something. They would have given him a label. But I realized, like, why am I fighting against what he wants to do? Sometimes he just wanted to wear his superhero suit and be upside down. And while he's doing that, I will just ask him a spelling word, or if he's climbing a tree, we would talk about the tree. We would spend time to learn about those things. And then guess what? His mind is calm now, and a lot of times he will go do the work with no problem. But it was when I was trying to make him fit the mold of what I wanted him to do. That was definitely a little bit very respectful kids, but a little bit of pushback as far as how much we was able to get accomplished in a day, versus when I just let my kids learn in the environment that was best for them. Again, sometimes on the steps, they were sitting here doing their homework, as opposed to these desks that I spent all this money on to make them appear that they were in school. But yeah, I let them learn in what felt good to them, and they love learning. Absolutely love learning. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, what you've just said to us, right? Thank you very much for that. You actually remind us that education and schooling is not just in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
It's everywhere. And because we are product of the system, we have been conditioned and programmed to feel that education should take place in a certain environment, in a certain way, and it's very prescriptive. Because it's interesting, I've heard you say that you got them the desk so that it looks like a classroom, it looks like a learning environment. Who say that? Why should it be? Learning is everywhere. And it's interesting because the children have actually taught you that I don't want to learn in this tradition fashion. Why should I have to learn in this traditional way? I could learn however I want to learn. And I think that's what we need to start taking on board. We need to be listening to what they want and how they want it to be done.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because I do feel that homeschooling, home education offers the children that flexibility to be them.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that there's no structure. It
Mm,
doesn't mean that there's no guidance. I'm not really an unschooler. There's a lot of people who follow that kind of thought process, and I'm not, I have nothing against that frame of mind either. We do guide our children that this is what we're going to learn. Um, so again, because wellness is my thing, if I'm going to teach my kids wellness, we're going to talk about different ways. If I know, for example, that one of them really likes basketball and this is their thing, I can introduce to them new sports. I can introduce to them new things, but we're going to learn basketball. And now we're going to take this, we're going to make it a math lesson. We're going to look at the physics behind it. We're going to tear this thing apart to understand it on every level possible. But it's there, but it might be in the framework of something that piques their interest, but they still have guidance on how we're going to make sure that they learn these things that we know is going to be important too. It might be writing an essay about who Michael Jordan is or whomever. So they're going to get the writing skills. They're going to learn how to process information, but they're going to do it in a joyful way that they feel connects with them best. Oh, you're on mute.
need to take this off. Thank you for that. Do you follow a curriculum and are all your children currently now in homeschooling except the big one that is in the army?
Okay, so the big one's in the Army. My daughter is actually she's doing pre-med. So she's 19. And then so the other three are still homeschooled. The 16-year-old, he does a combination between an online school right now. He's at the age where he's learned to sit there and to take those lessons quite well. We do a combination between time for learning, which is an I believe it's an online school that there's no teachers, but they have it's on their own pace, their own time, and we can kind of work with the lessons a little bit with that. My fourth child, we have done a lot of my curriculum as well as master books. We just like one of these eclectic people. Like what works. Sometimes I feel like if we have all one curriculum of the same exact source, that they get bored.
Mhm.
So we like to mix it up to kind of make things feel a little different and a little bit more exciting from subject to subject. It might be year to year, it might change up, but we find great resources wherever we can. But the best library that we do have is our library cards. So getting books on subjects, having them read, have them take notes on those books, have them write book essays. We love to make sure that books are, we call them living books, where they become the main textbooks, even if it's our Bibles or if you're not a Christian, you can use your whatever spiritual practices you have, the books that's available there, writing those things down, memorizing. It gives you the same kind of skills. Like, why memorize Shakespeare when they don't need it at the end of the day? It's great. I love Shakespeare. If my kids was into it, then we would do that. But when they can take these things that maybe is going to apply to their life a little bit closer, and that they keep it longer longer in their minds. Now I will say again, plug here because this is who I am. I do have the curriculum that I do for the health and wellness. So right now we just launched the volume 1 of the Peaceful Wellness, and I do plan on it's a collection of the things that my kids have learned, and we will continue to have more volumes come out very soon. But yeah, it's I have created a lot of my own curriculum because these are the things I want to teach my kids, and maybe not everything hits the same way that I want them to learn it.
Mhm.
So, we make these things simple. It might be a good book that I have read that I want my kids to read or understand the principles of. It might be about nutrition. I'm like, well, this was a really good book. I try to take that book, break it apart to make it good for the kids to understand it as well. So,
Right, thank you. So, which means in terms of your curriculum, it's alive, it's active.
And it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It could be simply seeing something, an ad. They want to know what that is. They want to know, they go into the dentist and maybe the dentist said that we're going to do a bone graft. Well, guess what? We're going to learn all about that bone graft. We're going to see what that looks like. We're going to tear we're going to use YouTube. We use anything that we can, again, in creating an environment for learning. So that way
Mhm,
they look for ways to want to learn. It's just a
mhm,
natural part of who they are.
mhm, mhm. Thank you. What does a typical day look like for you?
Okay, so a typical day, now it's changed a lot throughout the year, but a typical day typically is where we wake up, we have our family's morning worship, we have a Bible time together, and then my older kids, now that they're big enough to do their own curriculums, they typically go to their rooms, they work until they're done, and they say, "Mom, I'm done." It's just pretty much that simple for them. Now, my little one, who is now 5 years old, we are very intentional about making sure that she takes the time to learn. So we go outside, we maybe we take a walk, and I'll have the older ones come along with us. But she's doing things like picking up flowers, or we have a neighborhood garden, so we might go stop by there. We might go to the mailbox. We do all these little things just to get her. The fresh air is really good for their minds to get them in the framework of learning, especially the exercise to go along with that. And then when we come in, I usually have something set up for her where maybe it might be hands-on things like Play-Doh, or or she might cook with me. She stands right there. She cooks with me all the time. All of my kids, I kid you not, they can cook any meal. Not my 5-year-old, but the rest of them from 13 up. They are all really good at cooking because this is part of the skills that they've learned. Um, I don't think there's many things that they've learned how to do all things household related. It wasn't just set aside for my girls, it was set aside for my boys too. But yeah, we I give her activities. We and have quiet music to make sure that there's quiet time. Um and we ask questions. I kind of get a reflection of what's going on with their day, what is it they're learning, see if there's any ways I can help them. And usually by the end of that day, or if I have something that I'm like maybe presenting on, I might present it with my kids and let them ask questions and see how it works with them, see if they like it, give me feedback. Or yeah, it's every day is different, but for the most part it's filled with lots of love. Number one, we try to keep a peaceful environment, and then by 4 o'clock I kind of let them do their own things, regardless if it's video games or reading. Sometimes they read. Lots of coloring, lots of crafts happening in my household. But yeah, we try to make sure that it's just filled with love. We try to stay clean. That's a huge thing for me as well. And then we also just try to stay connected. That's the biggest part for me.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you. So, for example, so what time would you start? 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or they all start at different times?
They all start at different times. My oldest one, he likes to get up and get it done. He's the 6 o'clock in the morning person. He'll wake up and he'll just do it. He'll get as far as the academics that's on the computer for the time for learning, he'll do that. And then yeah, I usually have something one-on-one that I want my kids to learn, of things that, I find important. So we might do that right after our breakfast, about 8 o'clock. We'll do something like that and then go outside and then come back and do something like that if I got the little one quiet to do her own thing. But one of the biggest goals that I do try to encourage my kids is to learn how to be learners for themselves and not be so dependent on me. To use their brains, to ask questions, to know how to work by yourself,
Mhm,
but also know how to share what you have learned with our family as well. So
Mhm, mhm,
so that happens sporadically throughout the day. Like, hey, so you did math? Okay, so you're in algebra 2. Well, did you figure out that? Well, how did you come to that? How did you finally figure that out? That was pretty difficult. And sometimes he say, well, I went to con and then they explained this and then I went to this thing and they explained that and then it hit me and then he'll give me the whole thing on how he worked it out in his mind on how it works. And sometimes I plugged it in because I thought about, he'll come up with some like word problem that happened in his mind some kind of way. He'll figure it out and tell me exactly how he came to understand that concept. So
mhm, mhm. Thank you. What do you find that is powerful about homeschooling?
I think that what's most powerful, first and foremost, is I think that oftentimes we have, as parents, have given our kids up to a system.
Mhm,
And not everybody is in a position to homeschool. I get that, but I think that we so quickly have let go without even thinking about it that when I started homeschooling, first of all, it felt stressful at first because now my kids are not gone from me. And so, but what I found is the rewarding part is getting to be a parent again in a real way that is not like the way we see in ancient times where they walked beside them and they read with them and they taught them and the kids was with them mostly wherever they went.
mhm,
And I think it brought my family back together. I see that my kids have a closeness that a lot of other kids don't. I don't I'm very close with my brother, but not this on the same level of closeness. Um and I do believe it gave them freedom to learn the way that they want to learn and the way they are designed to learn as well.
mhm,
Because
mhm,
they are unique, everybody has different ways of learning. That's why I can't say what curriculum because every curriculum, I mean, every child and every subject might be different for each one. One of them, like, I cannot understand this. So maybe we need visuals. And I might have, like, for our chemistry classes, one of my kids needed to have videos to go with that and the other one wanted to go on site somewhere to do that. So, we had to figure out different ways on what was going to be best for them. But I think that they know now going into college that there's different ways. I don't have to learn this way. And I know the resources on how to find out ways of knowing what I need to know so I can accomplish this goal um, to achieve what I need to achieve as far as degrees and further studies as well.
mhm. Thank you. What were some of the challenges?
I think the biggest challenge was the curriculums. I think that, again, we wanted to be like school at home.
Mhm.
That was my when I tell you that I struggled with that so much, it's like I literally, I even had a chalkboard. Like I went all out. I went all out. I was like, this is my school. Uh, everybody had their own desk. I almost bought lockers. I was getting crazy. But I think that wanting to create something that they were not created for was the biggest thing. But the curriculums itself, there's so many that's out there. So how do you choose, and how do you
Mhm,
choose for 5 kids? Because I the first 2 years, lots of suffering, like either money wasted, time wasted. Us like this is just not working. I need to start all over. But I realized that um not to be so big on I don't know if you guys are aware of a Becca. A Becca here is like the supreme homeschooling curriculum. Like they
mhm,
even use it in some of the schools. And I just thought, oh, we're gonna go with a Becca, and it's very expensive. And this is what everybody's using. But when a Becca, first of all, very expensive. We are a huge family. Now my husband is the only one working at the time. So how is it that I'm gonna use like I wanted this to work, I've invested in it, and my kids are miserable. I'm miserable, and now my husband's miserable. So we're just one miserable family.
mhm.
So just being patient and kind to myself too, to say that this is a learning process for us all, especially when the kids have been in school and
Mhm,
have certain expectations. And even for the kids who haven't been in school and they don't know what it's like to sit down and learn.
mhm,
So, yeah, I think that it was trying to find what was best for us and our flow that was going to work, and being okay with making mistakes along the way and not getting it right.
mhm, mhm, mhm. What do you think the children felt about being homeschooled? How do you think they feel about being homeschooled?
I ask this question often. One of my most rewarding things that my daughter was talking to my husband the other day, and he was asking her because she's now we have two gone out the house, and she came home the other day, and he was asking her about her education, her goals, and what she's doing, and she says, "Well, you know, after I become a mom and we homeschool, then I'll come back to this too." And it just like it I didn't even think that my kids would want to homeschool their kids, especially being that they are going down, medical paths and they're doing all these other things. But they realize, according to them, that they realize the benefit that they've had. In fact,
Mhm,
one of their favorite flexes that they always say is they helped a lot of the other kids in their education, that the kids that was in school, public school, and even some of the private school kids, they were tutoring them. They were helping them out to get to get their grades up, and that was kind of their side hustle. But I do think that they realize the privilege it is.
mhm,
But I do think that, furthermore, I think that the one area that they have struggled with is they want to do things their way now.
mhm,
And so that becomes a challenge because they're used to going about their own beaten path. But it's also been good because because they're so determined, they're gonna find a way to do it their way,
mhm, mhm.
even against the system.
Exactly, because you know what, everything that you've said is looking at going against the system, fitting in with the uniqueness of that child. That child is doing what works for them, not what the system say works for them. The child knows
Hmm.
what works for them, and I think that's really, really beautiful. One of the things people often say is, how do they, people often ask the question, how do they socialize? Don't you feel that they're actually missing out on socialization skills?
Mm. Yeah, so the funny thing is going back to when my son was in school, um, one of the complaints that they said was he was talking too much, and they put him on what they call silent lunch, or that he's not allowed to talk in the classroom. And then there was a point when the bus was even silenced. The bus was on silence because of whatever they was dealing with. And I remember saying, I'm going to homeschool my kids. That's what I told the teacher. I was like, they want to homeschool him. And she's like, well, what about socialization? Like, he's not socializing here because you told him that he can't talk. He has to be quiet. He's not allowed to ask questions. He can't talk during lunch. Like, we having all these reasons on why they're not able to socialize. But now they're able to socialize way more because my kids know we spend time going to nursing homes. My kids are comfortable talking to elderly people. My kids have been my daughter is actually, she works at a daycare currently right now, but she knows how to talk to children. They know how to talk to more people than just their peers, and they have friends. They have friends from our local churches. We have there's our kids do not participate, but there are many homeschool co-op groups that exist. Um, we did not participate because we have something called Pathfinders for our kids that they participated in at a school. It's kind of like I don't know, it's like a scout club, like a Boy Scout, Girl Scout type of thing. So they participated in so many things. Matter of fact, I was drained with how much participation that they was doing with other, and then the kids want to come to my house too. Like lots of kids was always at our home. It has always been at our home as well. So that part is the part that matter of fact, I think I would argue that my kids socialize too much.
Mm, mm, mm. So in terms of, you don't feel that they're missing out on socialization. Then again, there are five of them. So in terms of interacting, they're fortunate because they have each other. But on a general scale, everybody used to say one of the challenges is socialization. How do you think that your children will socialize? And the exact answer you've just given, that's what most people saying, because they have the opportunity to socialize, not with the peers, with older individual. And that's obviously must be a good thing.
Yeah. And they find people too that are more like-minded in many ways,
Mhm,
who they don't feel like they're forced to be in situations that they don't they that doesn't bring them comfort.
mhm,
So I like my daughter, and very beautiful girl, modeled a little bit too, but she's always knows like this situation doesn't suit me, so
mhm.
I'm going to remove myself from this
Wow.
situation and move on. And I think it's just so funny how that kind of works. I think that when I was her age, I struggled with that. I struggled because I wanted to fit in, but
Mhm,
when she's being on the outside is like, I don't need to fit in,
mhm, mhm,
because when they feel like they have everything that they need at home,
mhm,
I think it really makes a huge impact on their ability to, on how they connect with others as well.
mhm, mhm. Thank you. Do you think, now looking back, do you think that the homeschooling as a whole is more powerful than the traditional education in terms of equipping the children for the world outside? Or do you think it's the same? Do you think that you're able to make a comparison?
Oh, that's tough. I would say that it depends on the person. It
Mm.
depends on the family. I have met many homeschool parents that I'm like, what are you doing? You know? So I can't say that it's always going to be the case, but I will say that, and there's so many ways of homeschooling now. There's virtual schools that's taking place. There is, like I mentioned, the unschooling. There's so many different ways, but I will say that there's nothing that's going to ever be more powerful than the quality time that is, again, my oldest one is 21, and it feels like he was just like 10, you know? So I think that there's nothing can ever take away from the power of growing together as a family,
Mhm,
that time together. Um, so that in itself, yeah, hands down, homeschooling all the way. But if you do find yourself in a position that maybe you can't homeschool because of your work or because of whatever, maybe you live in an area that's not accepted, but having that intentional to being able to set a learning environment in your home regardless
mhm,
if they're going out to a traditional school or not, where they come home and they feel that learning is important. I think that it does make a huge, it plays a huge part of just having your home set for learning in general. I
mhm,
know plenty of people who I think have done great things and very, very wise at their young ages, who parents are just, they love learning.
mhm,
So I
mhm,
think that that's the key. But I am biased to say that I love the fact that I got to spend time with my kids as well. And I don't think I would have known the struggles truly that they had I not homeschooled my kids.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Thank you. So do you feel that as you were aware of the struggle, what did it do in terms of, sorry, my eyes are buzzing. The
No
fact
worries.
that you became aware of the struggle, how did that equip you in supporting them?
It made me take responsibility,
Mhm,
because now the responsibility wasn't falling on the teachers to do it.
yeah,
And that's hard because, you think, well, this is why you go to the school, especially if you pay for private education. But I think it gave me a sense of responsibility to being more, I say it gave me a way to love my kids deeper.
mm,
So not only am I going to make sure that they're taken care of, you know, with the needs that's provided, but I want to make sure that they are learning, but those areas that they're struggling, it's a way that we can fight this thing together. So to add to that, I think that's what drew us closer as a
mhm,
too, because we can talk about the struggles. We talk about it all the time. It's a common thing that we deal with. So regardless if we're talking about our learning struggles when it comes to education or when it comes to other areas in our life, I think that it's just, you know, we're set to do that constantly.
Mhm. Thank you. Do you think that you were able to help your children regulate their emotion as a means of the fact that you were homeschooling them? Do you think that you were able to catch there in terms of the post-pandemic and support them in terms of the emotion or some of the challenges they might have within the mental health?
Oh, this is a great question. I wasn't expecting this question, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. Question here. So, my daughter, again, she had a lot of friends in spite of the fact that she was homeschooled. And during the pandemic, with a lot of things, I think that still not being able to connect with the kids, it was an easier transition than a lot of kids because they were already home. So that part was, it came to education, but it still played a huge toll on her. And we did have some issues that we dealt with, some mental health things. And I will say that there was a moment that was really, it was a difficult moment, but I felt like there was, because I had such a connection with her, I
Mhm,
knew something was off and we was able to fix it and get the help that she needed. And I don't believe that if I didn't have that connection, I wouldn't have thought to go check in on her to make sure everything was okay.
mhm,
So they still, homeschooling is not going to prevent the world from happening and prevent our kids from dealing with certain things. It's just not going to do that. And matter of fact, even at our best as parents, there's our kids are still going to have their own trials and their own tribulations, but being letting our kids know that we listen, I'm willing to, sacrifice my career so that way you can be good. I think it set a sense of it set a, I guess you can say, a tone of dedication to our kids. But I will say that now looking back and recognizing that maybe we should have talked more about mental health.
mhm,
The wellness book that I do have, it actually talks about mental health a lot, and it talks about ways to deal with stressors. And I definitely make sure that I ask my little ones now, like, how are they feeling today? And I was not always good about the emotion side of it, but I have learned through those trials and errors, I guess you can say, that that is just as important. And a lot of kids are struggling right now.
mhm, mhm. Thank you. Would you say that the reason why you were not aware of how to deal with it was because of your own experiences?
Oh yeah, definitely. I come from a family, a culture, I guess you can say, of this is just we don't deal with those kind of things. And as in matter of fact, we have this term that we use here. I don't know if you guys use it too, but we say, strong being a strong black woman. And so when you have that strength, and I did not see emotions growing up around me. I just saw resilient women who did great things, at least from what I can see. And I didn't see, even in their worst moments, it seemed like they were fine, at least from my eyes. So
Mhm,
I definitely felt like I didn't know how to deal with it. And these kids today, they're not like us. They're gonna say that they're not happy or they're
mhm,
struggling. They know how to use those words a little bit more.
mhm,
Whereas I was definitely taught to just swallow it, keep
mhm,
going, keep moving, don't let people bother you, don't let
mhm,
situations bother you. And so having my kids a little bit more vocal in that area definitely was a good challenge, but a new challenge for me, for sure.
yeah, 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 yeah. So thank you very much for that. So the last one you have in homeschooling is 5 years, 5-year old.
Hmm.
So what is, I suppose the fact that she's seen nothing else,
Yeah.
so therefore, how is she seeing this?
It's funny when she plays. She was just playing right before I got on here. She says, "Mommy, can we play? We're gonna play school." And she gets her backpack. She fills it up. Now she's aware of a lot because she has friends who goes to school, and so she knows about a school bus. She knows about things. But I just was kind of letting her play. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And she's like, she puts up everything in her backpack, and then she got to school, and she says, "Mommy, now you're my teacher." And and so I think that uh, she's the second one who hasn't seen anything else, because the one next before her, he was like 6 months old when I pulled the other ones out. So he doesn't know anything else. But yeah, sometimes I will say, sometimes I might threaten them, like, I'm gonna put you in school, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, they don't know anything else. This is just kind of the life that they lived. And they I've asked, do you guys want to go back to school? And no, no. Why would I,
Mhm.
or why would you like to go to school? Like, no, why would I do that? You know.
Mm, 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 Thank you. What three tips would you give to anyone who would like to home educate their children or child, but in doubt about it because they feel that they're not academically equipped and they're not a teacher to do that job?
Oh, yeah. I just felt that one. Like, that's exactly how I felt. That's exactly how I felt. The first tip I would say is, if I could go back, I would try to surround myself. I did actually, before I even started homeschooling, I got as many books as possible about it. I did as much research to the point where I could not see myself doing anything else. It
Mm,
became such ingrained, like, I learned so much. Education is not based off of a sheet of paper.
mm,
Education is about going to you pick up the books, find out the things, find out, listen to stories, just even by being on here and listening to the stories of people who've done it, the challenges that they may have. Think about what it is that you want to do, and do and walk in that. So I would say, do as much research as possible, number one. Number two, surround yourself with as many people, even if you don't know them in person. But whenever I'm trying to do a new goal, I definitely will go on my social media and just follow as many people that is kind of achieving the goals that I want. So that way, it's kind of, again, it's a part of you. You feel like a community is important. A community of people is very important. But last, I would say, give yourself grace. You're not going to get it right the first time. The first year, you might think everything is going to be beautiful. I had so many people who was like, I'm going to do it just like you. And then that first year comes, and they struggle, so they quit. And don't look at other people's experiences. Your family's your family, you know. But be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself. And if you have to go to your closet and cry, do it. It's okay. But just know that tomorrow's a new day. Teachers are struggling too. Everybody's struggling. We're all trying to get through. We're all trying to do what's best for these kids, and ask for help where you need to as well. So, but be patient. Up, you're on mute.
me and this mute. Thank you. The two powerful things you say, give yourself grace. And I think too often we so hard on ourselves because we feel that we want to get it right.
Yeah.
And you've also said that wanting to make it like a classroom. We can't make it like a classroom if we are taking them out from the classroom.
Yeah.
Doesn't make
If
no
you want
sense.
them to be in the classroom, let them go back to school.
Exactly, exactly. If we're taking them out from the traditional education, we can't want to have the setup in the same way because that's contradicting. It doesn't work. And another thing you say, which I think is so, 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 so powerful, ask for help. A lot of people seem to think that asking for help is a sign of weakness, but it's a reminder, it's a sign of strength because it demonstrates that you are aware of where your shortcomings are. So therefore, you are actually identifying it and get asking for support to rectify that.
And there are many areas. I remember one of my third one was struggling with reading, and I didn't know. My other kids already knew how to read. So there wasn't something, they learned that in school. I did not know how to teach him how to read. We bought the curriculums. It wasn't felt like it wasn't really working. I reached out to people and I asked for help. The local resources around me, and did lots of research. And I mean, thankfully, I did find a book that he didn't get tutored, but I found a book that helped him, and it helped him really quickly. For some reason, that was the book for him, you know. And it was so cheap. It was like $20 here. So it was so inexpensive, and yet, you know, sometimes we think that we have to do the most. But
Mhm,
I am asking for help is just a key thing to make sure that, you know, it's humbling,
mhm,
but it's also
mhm,
shows how much you love and care for your kids too.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Thank you, thank you. I like the way you say it's humbling because that's something we seems to fail to humble ourselves sometimes. We seem to feel that we know all the answer, and then conflict arise because you feel that, who do you think you are to tell me I know it all? So it's really, that's really, really powerful that sometimes we need to humble ourselves. Yeah,
Hmm. And
right.
when you don't know how to teach a lesson, it's okay to learn the lesson. It's okay to it's okay to sometimes I have sat there and learned so much of
Mhm,
things I thought that I knew, but I
mhm,
clearly didn't because when it
mhm,
comes to explaining to my kids, I didn't know how.
mhm,
We learned together a lot, you know, and
mhm,
sometimes it was very humbling to tell my kids, I don't know the answer
mhm,
to this, but
mhm.
we can find it together.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important factor there. I don't know, but we could find it together. And the children have so much more respect for you because they realize that you are human like them.
Hmm.
That's what I say to teachers. When I don't know the answer, I'm not pretending that I know it. I do not know the answer. It's like on Tuesday, one student asked me a question. I say, you know what? I really can't remember. And I couldn't. I say, you know what? Let's find out and we discuss it the next day.
Yeah.
There's no point in me pretending. As I said to them, I do not have an answer encyclopedia in my head. You know.
And you don't have to give all the answers either.
Eh,
Sometimes it's like, hey, I might know the answer, but I want you to find the answer too.
exactly. And that's also helping them to learn, like identify this is research skills. So
Ab-
you are going to research to find it because the school doesn't always give you that. So in situation like that, I feel that it is very powerful, empowering the students to do for themselves. Final question. Would you say that how would you rate homeschooling in terms of the empowerment, in terms of self-confidence? What would you say from the time your children were in the traditional education, you're removing them? How
Yeah.
would you talk in terms of their confidence and how
Mhm.
you see them as being a holistic individual?
Yeah. My son was broken when we left the school system, completely broken, defeated. Um, there are some times when I see my kids, the growth that they have, the confidence that they have. Oh, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful because I do believe that some of these systems were meant to break.
Yes.
And um yeah, I think that when you realize that and you see that they feel the confidence that nothing holds, again, my son started learning the piano, I think at 19, and he just picked it up and kept going, you know, really good at it now. So it's like there's nothing that holds him back because he has confidence that if he wants to learn something, he can.
Mhm,
Nothing could hold him back. And same thing, you know, with all of my kids.
mhm,
That is the best gift that
mhm,
homeschooling has brought us. And again, if or maybe if you raised in a family that works the case, but it's hard because you don't know who the teachers are always going to be. You don't know how they're going to present certain things and what they, you know,
mhm,
whatever things that they have going on that maybe can break
mhm,
a child. And it might not even be intentional, you know, it's
mhm,
just
mhm,
that their spirits was not broken because they are in an environment where it's encouraged. It's
mhm,
encouraged. And sometimes they don't like what they're learning when we
mhm,
get through it. And they maybe they don't have to worry about it no more, or
mhm,
maybe they find out it wasn't so bad after all. But
mhm,
yeah, there's a lot of self-confidence that is taking place. And not just in them, but also in me as a mom.
mhm,
I
mhm,
have become more self-confident as a person because I have seen my babies grow and I have seen them achieve great things. Even
Mhm,
when I thought that if I did this, this was going to be the biggest mistake of my life, and I've questioned, is am I doing the right thing? And it
mhm,
has encouraged me to go out and do other things as well that I thought was hard as well too. And they get to see that, they get to see me do those things too. So
mhm. Thank you. Have you got anything else you want to say to us before we wrap up?
no, I mean, if you want to follow me for anything else, I am at Candace underscore piece of health. Also, you can go to my website for
Yeah.
mypieceofhealth.com. But we have lots of resources. I have homeschool education resources on there as well for here in the US. Um, I'm always available to answer any questions. I'm always available. I love helping in this area. This is a true passion. I almost feel like it's like a ministry for me to help moms to have that confidence to
Mhm,
be able to do this. So,
mhm.
anytime you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you for that offer. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Candice. Thank you, my Facebook audience. You guys need to follow Candice. You also need to have a look in my YouTube channel to see some of the things that we've been talking about homeschooling. And I would really, really encourage parents out there. If your child, the system is not working for your child, do not blame your child. It could be the system that is not working for your child. Remove your child from the system and work with your child, because you need to remember, for every one teacher, there are 31 children who've got a range of learning styles. And as teachers, we cannot support every learning style in that classroom. So your child, unfortunately, might be the one that's missing the target. Right? So there's nothing wrong with you deciding to remove your child from the system. And you need to remember, you are the best educator for your child. Why? Because you know your child more than any one of us. You temporarily thrust your child in our care for the 5 hours, etc. That doesn't mean we know your child as well as you do. So think about that. Do not allow your child to struggle in silence. It is not a positive thing. Anyway, guys, take care, stay blessed. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next. Oh no, I'll see you guys tomorrow.